Welcome, welcome, welcome. Two more welcomes, one for the East Coast, one for the West Coast, and an additional welcome for the Midwest, Central Zone, since we have somebody here from us from Texas, where my family originally came from. Part of our continuing series where we talk to reporters, writers, politicians, anybody on the left, anybody on the right, and we want to provide their perspective unedited and unaltered for you, so that you could do this thing that was popular back when I was in high school called thinking for yourself. Maybe it'll have a return. Maybe it never will. With us today, it is our privilege to have Jenn Mack. She is and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, I understand there's specific wording, planned candidate. We can call you a planned candidate for Texas governor. Is that fair?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Because of Texas law, which we respect, want to follow the laws around elections. We believe in democracies, or to whatever degree it still existed in America. Planned candidate for governor. That's what I mean to say throughout the entire interview. So, as we were talking about before, normally I have background and photos and everything, but this is a little bit more organic. I met you at the Texas Independence Conference, where I went to go speak about the book that I was working on, which is this interview series. And you and I got into a conversation about how you wanted to run for governor. Let me stop there. Why are you running for governor? Why do you think you should run for governor versus anybody else? And why now?
Good questions. So I actually had no political aspirations, to be honest with you. Never have. I have a different background, and the thing is, I did a lot of, I guess, volunteer work with human trafficking and things on the border. I have family that have farms on the border. What's going on right now with the politicians? It's just not working. It's kind of a free for all. The Border Patrol has basically become bellmen for everyone coming over. There's a lot of violence that's not talked about. I think that I just got to the point that no one's doing anything and someone needs to. So I decided just to step up and do it.
Jenn, I'm sorry to push back. All I hear about as a liberal in Texas is you conservatives as a liberal in California. Whoops, sorry. Don't text me after the show, okay? My family's from Texas, so whenever I talk to any Texan, it gets, they're Tejano, from a town called Dumas. Yeah, you could pronounce it a different way outside of Amarillo, not Amarillo. Okay, done, out of the way. Jenn, I mean, how bad are things? And all we hear about is everybody in Texas saying we got to focus on the border. I mean, don't you have a lieutenant governor and a governor and everybody saying we got to focus on the border? Are you saying they're not getting the job done?
Yeah, I know that's shocking because everyone who's not in Texas seems to have the best answer and that everything looks marvelous and amazing. But I think what's happening is they begin to do something to sort of pacify the Texans, and then it just sort of goes away. There's nothing that's long-standing. They might come in and yes, it's great to bust them out. I actually have no issue with that. I'm from Uvalde, and a lot of the Uvaldians, we call hardworking people, they took the time to do what needed to be done to come over, and they are actually frustrated. So it's not sweet people coming over to try to get jobs like it used to be. Now, if you go to the border, there's people cutting through, they're grabbing inappropriate areas and smiling at the camera and blowing kisses, and it's just a big mockery what's happening. And they tend to, in my experience, I used to be married to Border Patrol, they would actually throw and try to stone the Border Patrolmen. And if they fought back, they would get in trouble for using deadly force. So there's a lot of things that just, it's just not being handled. It's not being taken care of. And there's a lot of aspects that need to be.
I really liked the way that you expressed that. I was having a conversation with my mom last night, and I came to the exact same conclusion that you did. So I have kind of a soft opinion on undocumented immigration in California. Hold on, in California, based upon how I grew up with what it was, which was Somebody has a job here. They're already here. They call for their cousin to come back. So they already know somebody. They have a place to stay. They have a job lined up. They're staying with someone that they know. It's not a registered system. No, it's not good. But it was, there's work here. And somebody calls a family member and they come up. So they're staying with family. There's someone who kind of knows them, someone kind of watching over them. And there's a job lined up. And as I understand, that's not what they're doing now. It's, I showed up at the border. I want asylum. Okay, come on in.
Yeah.
And we'll hold on to you until your court date 1 to 10 years from now. And you can go wherever you want. We don't know if you have family, relatives, any connections, any jobs lined up at all. I'm like, Mom, that's radically different than what we've been doing here in California. And I could see why people would consider that a big problem. That's not what we have here in Cali. We had sort of a workable system. That sounds just like chaos.
Right. Right. And it does get very chaotic. And then you also have the fact that terrorists are coming in through Brazil, which this has already been out now. So terrorists are coming in through Brazil, they go up through Panama, and then they come up to our border. So that doesn't seem to be getting vetted properly as well. Child trafficking is such an issue. And being in South Texas, we happen to be in that intersection where the interstate goes from East Coast to West Coast and Canada to Mexico. And so there's a lot of trafficking, drug trafficking, human trafficking. It's really, really, really bad. And it's being downplayed.
Well, I remember famously President Biden going on TV and saying there's no crisis on the border. All these conservatives are wrong. And then I think it was the year later, it came out that there was a Democrat mayor who he called and said, you need to tell everybody there's no crisis and act like it so I can go on TV and say this. And the guy basically outed Joe because Joe was saying, well, just help me out now and then I'll come and, I'll deal with the issue. And this Democrat mayor's like, well, it's a year later and I kind of feel like you played me and you didn't deal with the issue. And yeah, I was down to be on the team. And it came out like, Joe, you went on TV and said there's no problem because you told someone to lie about the situation. How's that leadership?
Right.
But it sounds like what you're saying is, despite the image that we get outside of Texas, that when you look at Greg Abbott and other people, Ted Cruz, they're not actually getting the job done either. It sounds like you're saying you don't have total faith in these well-known Texans to actually do something about the border, or you're saying they just, I think the term's virtue signaling that's typically applied to liberals, but this might apply to conservatives in this one. They're just doing virtue signaling. They're not actually concerned about solving the issue. Is that a fair summary, roughly, of what you're saying?
That's what I'm seeing, to be honest with you. What's happening is that I've noticed, and I'm just going to.
That's why we do the series. What are you saying? My opinion.
Yeah, I'm joking, but not joking. I know we've talked about this, but there was a time where I genuinely believed that God himself was a Republican from Texas, and you could not tell me otherwise.
Be honest. That's what the series is about.
Yeah,
what did you see?
But as I see things now, I have noticed that even as the Republicans are in, it's all about who gets in first so that they can undo what the other guy did. And then maybe go ahead and pacify only those who voted for them, forgetting that they're supposed to be representing those who voted and those who didn't vote for them. This is your people. You have to be representing your people. And so that's just not what we're getting right now.
That was something that you said on the phone the other day that grabbed me, was that we're losing, or I think we both agreed that we're losing a political class on both the left and the right who recognizes that when you get in office, you're a leader for everybody, including the people who didn't like you, talked bad on your name, and didn't vote for you. Sorry, that's what democracy is. You're a leader now. You have to at least attempt to provide for those people who didn't vote for you.
That's right. That's right.
And you're saying you're seeing a lack of that attitude or opinion. It seems to be diminishing in America.
It really is on both sides. I just even trying to go in and look at people, to look up to, just going through and seeing what their actionable items were, things that they actually did. It really seems like everybody has a great start, and everybody maybe they go in wanting to make a difference, right? And then they get bought, or they're going to get some kind of donation, and if you take this donation, then go ahead and make sure this is done for whatever lobbying. And we don't have time for that. We just don't have time anymore. And the reason I decided to do now, to answer your other question, is because I really believe we're in a time that everybody is tired of the parties. There are no traditional Republican or traditional Democratic Party anymore. Everyone seems to be extreme one way or the other. And so I think coming up and wanting to run as a libertarian candidate, I think we're just out of time, and the time's now.
Everyone is extreme. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
No traditional Republican or Democratic candidate anymore. Everyone is extreme. What do you mean by that? And when did you notice that change?
I noticed that change, honestly, during COVID. I'm sure after you initially see it, you start replaying and seeing some things prior.
Yes. Replay, please.
But COVID was probably the biggest for me because everything was so extreme. They actually were able to take decent people, and I say they being whatever powers it be, whatever authority was in place. It doesn't matter what party. If you look at the families today and how well they're doing, me personally, I have women in my family that are in their 80s, sisters that quit talking for years because of how they voted or because of how they handled COVID. You had decent people acting in violence because they had such fear that they would literally attack someone. It became a mask versus no mask, vaccinated versus no vaccinated, Trump versus anybody else. It's all division, constant division. And again, it doesn't matter what side, it's all division. And we've got to find a way to be able to remove that. Because if you do, well, it goes back to the old adages, right? House divided is a house that will fall. And it's time.
Right. I think that was Lincoln or someone around that era. Why don't you think that we can just go back to the good old days? If you're saying that you only noticed political polarization at a very unworkable, splitting families up level in COVID was just a few years ago. Can't we just hold out that things will snap back into place before COVID?
Yeah. So prior to COVID, again, this just causes that replay, right? Prior to COVID, when you go back and think and look at those campaigns again, before COVID, just a few years before that, it was women against men.
Mm.
It was about squishing the man. How can a woman get ahead by squishing the man? And men versus women at that time. So it's actually been going on for a while now. Sadly, I didn't recognize it till it became just right in my face. But yeah, I started going back and looking, and I thought, wow, how did they manage to do this? We used to be such a united. If you think about historically speaking, the Great Depression, right? Everybody got together. How can we do this? How can we help each other on their own? They weren't forced to do it. They did it on their own. How can I share with you? How can I help you? Oh, well, my husband's gone. This man, he wasn't able to go to the war, or maybe he's back from it. He's going to mow the lawn. She's going to take care of the kids. There were people that were actually helping each other out. You had women over here building the ammunition while the men were out fighting. Everybody had a purpose. Everybody had something to do. And now it's all about, how can I defeat you? I need to not only help and assist, whether you're in corporate America or even in a family. How can I outdo you? You become a politician. How can I outdo the last guy, and how can I undo whatever he just did?
When do you think it got that way? Is it COVID, or now looking back and being reflective? Do you think it started because you're saying, looking back, I now start saying this. Looking back, being reflective, having time to think and ponder it. How far back does this go, in your opinion?
Honestly, I think it's going to go back further than even what I thought. I thought that it was a party separation. So I would have said maybe when Obama hit office. But then I saw when the Bush Jr. hit office, other things that happened with the crash, and how people were divided during that time as well. And it was everybody's fault. And so I would love to research that a little bit more, but I think it goes further back than what I could have imagined.
And you thought initially it was about party separation, but now you're thinking it's bigger. It's cultural. It's everything.
It really is. And it really is dividing the cultures. If you think about it, it's and I just know this by working in corporate America, right?
Right.
The new push towards inclusivity seems to be the most exclusive movement I've ever seen. We
What do
have
you
to have,
mean?
well, it's not about culture, it's about race. It's about ethnicity. So, gosh, I can only think of cities within Texas, right? I love San Antonio because they're very multicultural. You can go on one block and see a beautiful Native American dance happening, headdress, it's gorgeous. You go to another block and it's little Chinatown. You go to another block and that's multicultural, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love that. Why can't they embrace that? Well, now you've got all of a sudden these fix all white people to come in and basically say, let me fix this. This isn't okay. So we need 3 Indians to come over here, 4 black people to come over here, 5 white people to come over here. Why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? Did we ask?
Mm, mm,
We just
mhm.
immediately went in and decided that we know what's best. And only in America can you be that narcissistic. Only in America can you come in and try to fix everybody's problem with by dividing their families, by dividing their cities, by dividing it. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me.
They don't do it anywhere else. Um, I'll just give an aside that it's not well known outside of liberal circles and outside of minority communities because somehow it never makes the mainstream press that
Right.
there's a group called the white liberals, and they're not. Minorities have a give and take relationship with them. Of
Right.
yeah, it's nice you're trying to help, but sometimes you're meddling, and then you're you're kind of leading us and telling us what to do when you
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing that. You're not going to see a whole lot of that, but it mentioned. But absolutely, if you talk to minorities, especially here in California, they know exactly what you're talking about, seeing
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. I think it's just as asinine as I think you're letting on. Certainly, be progressive. And I'm not saying don't be white and be liberal. It's a term. There's even a speech by Malcolm X going back and going, look, there's this group that's helping but trying to dominate when they help, and
Yes.
anyways, why so can't we just snap back? Planned candidate for Texas governor who's running because you see a high level of political polarization. Can't we just have a candidate for president who unifies the country and brings everybody back together? I mean, what about maybe AOC gives Donald Trump a big hug and they say we're friends and we love each other? Can't we just have one leader, one good speech, one turnaround by members of Congress, and everything snaps back into place in America?
Yeah. So basically, a tyranny where there's one central leader. Is that kind of what would basically?
No, I'm just wondering, everybody, because everybody said, I've talked to a lot of professors who said, okay, Trump polarized America,
Mhm.
but if you get another leader, they can bring us all back together. And then we saw Joe Biden in 2020 saying famously that he would be that leader. There would be a quote national calming after he was elected. Trump supporters would realize that they were wrong, come to him, and the nation would heal. That was 3 years ago. We're going into the 2024 election cycle. That never happened. Nothing even remotely close to that happened. Yet there's a
Right.
lot of people who think, one more election, one good leader, someone's going to bring us all together. Is that possible in America anymore, in your political opinion?
I would say no, just because again, it seems to be all about manipulation, right? So, and I'm just going to give some examples that I
Please.
personally know of, right? Having the family that has the farms, what we've seen is depending on who's in office, typically will determine taxes. If you vote against paying higher taxes, well, then there's just inflation. And so what they do is they tell the farmers to go ahead and destroy the crop for this year to keep the demand high so that the prices can be high and they inadvertently still get their taxes. So where you would have paid $80 for something and $8 in tax, now you're going to pay $100 and maybe $10 in tax. So no matter what, they seem to plan to get whatever they want. It tends to always be about manipulation. I would actually welcome if anybody wanted to come in and go alongside me or totally go against me with the very plan of trying to unite the country. Great. That would be fantastic. I would love to see a strategic plan for that to happen. But what we've seen so far is that everything tends to go back to manipulation. How
So
can we control this? How can we make this the best outcome for us? It's we will sacrifice these individuals so that this group can be okay.
what I'm sensing from you is I think roughly an awareness that it's just not working like it used to. It used to work well, and sometime in the last couple of years, it just doesn't. Whenever I ask you questions about can it be fixed this way or can it be fixed that way, you seem to have some sort of response that suggests it can't, or that's not really plausible to think that it will be. It sounds like you've come to the conclusion that the United States is irreparably separated, at least at a psychological, emotional level. Am I getting that right?
That's correct. We were never meant to be one country under one um, governing authority. It was always supposed to be states that were united under one cause. And the government and the authority that was put in place, even the Constitution, was always meant to regulate the government. It was not meant to regulate us. It was not meant to become this tyrannical, whatever it is that we have right now, that this whole let's see, I guess the wokeness. Everybody has this weird spirit of politeness that is going around, and you'll notice in polls will show one thing, and then when people go around in the media and they interview people, because of this politeness that's absolutely fake, and they don't want to go against somebody, they'll say something else to the media, and no one seems to be in a position where they feel safe just to be honest. It's okay to be different, and it's okay to have a different opinion. You don't have to agree with everyone.
So you're saying sometimes these public opinion polls that show everybody agrees and we all think the same way, that's not actually accurate. People don't want to be judged, and they're sort of internally censoring themselves when they fill out those polls.
They really are. They really are. I've seen it. I've seen it in the workplace. I've seen it at political rallies. People will they'll censor because they're afraid someone's going to see it, and so they'll actually say that. You'll see this even in podcasts or media that's going around interviewing people on the street. Somebody will pause and then they'll say, "Well, gosh, I don't want to offend that person, so I guess I'll just say this. I don't really like it, but I'll say it anyway, whatever the it is." And if you're in a position that you can't be honest, if you're in a position that you can't live free with a basic human right of whatever your belief system is, then that's a problem. I don't know that that can be fixed.
Yeah. There's a long-running debate in political polarization research that says one group says, yeah, obviously we're politically polarized. It's bad. Look at January 6th. Look at 22 cities for BLM on fire. Look at one side denying the election. Look at another side denying the election. Take your pick. There's another school of thought that says, well, maybe we're not politically polarized at all. Maybe it's not that bad at all. What? What do you mean? Well, I have all these polls, these national polls that show 70% agrees on gun control and 70% agrees on abortion and 70% agrees on climate change. And I'm going, that just doesn't seem to fit the reality on the ground. And you had a lot of professors like Morris Fiorina and others say, no, there's no polarization. I have these polls that show commonality, so I can just assume that everything else out there doesn't exist or isn't real. Sounds like you're saying that's not smart to think that way.
Right. And I think anyone that just spends 5 to 10 minutes researching it, you can go to what's considered the liberal media or the conservative media. Look at both of them and you will find one extreme to the next. They all have the same polls that they did, and they all have different responses. So it really doesn't make any sense. Everybody kind of comes out, and whoever has the most money and the most, I guess, can be, well, really it's polarization, right? Whoever can be polarized the most, right? They can have the most backing. I was told, it's going to be really difficult. You're the underdog. You're not coming in with a bunch of billion-dollar backers, and that is true. And I love the underdog. I love the underdog in every race.
Wasn't RFK Jr., and I'm not endorsing all these politicians, but RFK Jr. was an underdog. He's now showing better. Vivek Ramaswamy was also an outsider, unknown.
Yeah.
He's one of the top candidates. Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump both came out. They were outsiders. Well, Bernie wasn't really, but he painted himself as one and he was bought as one. Trump really had no experience at all, and both of them came in and they were wildly popular on both sides. So that's 4 people in the last couple of years who had no experience and were the top political candidates. Perhaps having experience and being known as an established candidate isn't what it used to be.
Right. Maybe they want somebody who hasn't been corrupted yet. That would be great.
I'm just saying, like we talked about the other day, Bernie Sanders is the liberal version of Trump. I've tried to explain this to a bunch of people. Those guys are radically different. I know, but it's the same message for 2 different groups of people.
That's right.
I'm not part of the establishment. The establishment's against you. I mean, Bernie said, I want to have a revolution. And people are like, do you mean like with guns? He's like, no, I don't. I just mean, but he was using language of tear it down. I'm going to tweak. I'm going to tear it down. That's the same thing Trump did. And I go, these are the same guys for 2 different audiences. One likes sweets. The other likes savory food. You're not going to sell the same thing. That's 4 though. Maybe being a traditional candidate doesn't get you all the benefits it wants with the voters. It seems the voters are becoming, they're not buying it like they used to. They seem to be more doubtful of traditional candidates. I see people presenting themselves as outsiders more often and doing much better.
Yeah.
I mean, Kennedy came out of nowhere. Whether you like him or not, Vivek came out of nowhere.
That's right. That's right. Both sides hating them and loving them at the same time.
Both sides hating them and loving them. And one of my favorite stories was, as I said, Bernie and Trump are the same. Very few people believe me on that. I said, look at Vivek, and I think I told you this, look at Vivek and RFK. When they came out, everybody said, you're going to go nowhere because you don't have the connections to traditional media. You can't get the interviews, et cetera, with the big newspapers. And they said, fine, I'm going to go do every podcast. And I believe it was Nikki Haley made fun of Vivek for going on podcasts. And then the Democratic Party famously made fun of RFK for going on the podcast. And yet both parties missed out that podcasts were the way to get the message out today. And that's what allowed both of them. So they used this media vehicle that was new and they were laughed at for doing it. And it was the key to their success. So
absolutely.
Maybe the experts don't always call it right. I remember famously Hillary Clinton had the most money with the best collection of political experts the world had ever seen for a campaign. And Donald Trump beat her through unconventional antics.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that says everything. That's the old guard meeting the new guard, and the new guard wins. And the old guard doesn't work anymore. If you ever see the movie Braveheart,
yes,
they were talking about how no group of men can take on a horse army, and nobody's done it in 600 years. And then they did it, and then the very nature of warfare changed. But until that moment, the people with the horses thought, well, we're definitely going to win. And then he came up with a new military tactic, and it made the horses not as much of an advantage, but they couldn't see that. So this happens throughout history. Okay, we're going to get to the last part here. Let me just say, for everybody there, I'm not going to go into details on COVID-19. I would ask everybody to look up Dr. Lena Waithe. Dr. Lena Waithe. Lena Waithe was on MSNBC, CNN, whatever you say it, saying everything they were all saying during COVID. And then the last year, you will never see her on any of those same networks where she was beloved. because she started to say something that goes along the lines of, maybe we made mistakes and jumped to assumptions, and we made some mistakes and didn't actually use the science correctly. And maybe we caused a lot of lasting harm, and we didn't look at everything like we were supposed to. So media darling to media trash is the story of Lena Waithe. I always tell everybody, look it up. Come to your own conclusions. Why she was beloved before, and now you'll never see her on the same networks now. Same doctor, same background and pedigree. Nothing changed. That's just right. Now they don't want you to hear about it. I'll leave it there. Can't go into it. I don't want to, because it throws off the algorithms. I'll just leave it there. Also, you're talking about revolt against wokeism. And I think it's ESG is a system where they're trying to put woke policies into corporate guidance. Right. ESG took a major hit with the Disney Snow White movie. They've lost millions.
Yeah.
That they will never get back. That is a loss for the company. Additionally, there was the South Park comedy show, Enter the Panderverse, that made fun of the policies of Lucasfilm and Disney. They additionally lost millions of dollars over that. So I'm not sure how that's good business to lose millions of dollars as a profit-making machine. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. But that's not
they have a plan.
I'll leave it there. I can't go into it because so let's get to the meat and potatoes. You're not running for a traditional governorship. You are a planned candidate for governor, and you want to do something a little bit different with your candidacy for governor, more along the lines of independence, because you think that's the only remaining option. Please explain for the audience.
Yeah, so I really believe in independence for all things. So, for instance, just to give a few examples to talk about the wokeness in the corporate America, I was working for a company in which I had a great manager, male, and he let me know that there was a women's summit for technology, right? And I had this great invitation to be able to go, and it was just for women specifically, obviously. And the thing is, I got to thinking, and I thought, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be endorsed because I'm a woman. Either I want to be treated equally or I want to be treated different, right? I have to make that decision. And then the other thing is the media. People seem to be one-sided or the other, and I'm a firm advocate for the independent movement right now with media. And the reason being is I remember being a kid and having my dad serve in multiple wars. And there was a time where there was an amazing news station that only focused on news. It was CNN, and it was great. And I would sit down, and I would miss school sometimes to sit and watch for the very fate of my dad, to see if his name popped up on the screen. Because at that time, we didn't have the cell phones, we didn't have the internet the way that we do today. And so I would sit and watch and pray and hope that my dad's name would not pop up there. And I really relied on them. And now I don't even see news anymore. Now people are getting tore up. Families are being torn down, I should say. And it seems to be more about bashing the other person. The other thing is independence in education, right? We should not have to conform to whatever this mess is, where we exonerate child indecency because it makes a grown man feel better. I don't understand that. So reading, writing, and arithmetic, I know that that's old school, but I just feel like it works. So I was thinking maybe independence with education as well. Border security, of course. So all things independent.
So a more independent Texas policy. So more of the Texas saying, well, we're going to kind of go our own way. We're not as concerned what the feds are saying or doing at all. Maybe there's some limits we have to follow, but mentally, psychologically, spiritually, we're out. We've already checked out mentally, and we're going to operate our government based upon that on key issues such as education, the border, et cetera. We're going to do what we think is right, and we're just not going to be concerned about what the feds are thinking. Is that roughly the philosophy?
Actually, so constitutionally speaking, it says that we have the sovereignty to determine those things. So we're really just asking that they abide by the contract.
Oh, yes.
I know that sounds crazy, but
No. It sounds crazy to a California mind, but it's not. As I've had to explain to people here, Californians aren't aware of the 10th Amendment. They don't know that California was independent from America for 10 years. Texans are very aware that they were independent for 10 years. Texans are very aware that the states had sovereignty before the federal government took it away under Lincoln. Californians aren't. They don't. You guys have a lot of institutional knowledge that's just not available here. People don't know the states were nations. People don't know the 10th Amendment. People don't know that there was, and I'm not going to get into it, there was some legal reasoning for why secession would be seen by some as legal in 1860. You can look at John Calhoun. I'm not going to debate the issue of secession, etc. I'm simply going to say that now when we go, oh, that's just crazy, whack job, crazy talk. I'm like, not in 1860. You had very top legal scholars who said, yes, it's legal. In addition, you had other very top legal scholars who said it's not legal. All I'm saying is that now we have this opinion of, oh, that's dumb. It's always been dumb. Not in 1860. There was top minds. I'm not endorsing slavery. I'm saying looking at the knowledge of the law built from 1776 to 1855, there were top legal minds who had different of opinion on the legality of this. And when you look at the fact that they never charged Jefferson Davis for treason or sedition because they thought they would lose the court case, that's a historical fact. There's a little bit to it. I'll leave it there. But
and sorry to interrupt, but to go back to there was a time where top minds could get together, scholars, and they would actually sharpen each other. They didn't have to agree on everything. They would actually try to sharpen each other and try to make policies that would be best in the best interest of a community as a whole, right? And now again, it's that us versus them. And so one of the other things that I'm very concerned about is the fact that my people are basically becoming extinct. And I say that because if you're a woman, the very essence of a woman is disappearing. The name of a woman is disappearing. They're trying to make everybody asexual. And if a man does try to stand up and do anything about it, they're labeled a terrorist. They're pushed into a corner. And the one thing that has always put us different about America, what I loved about them, and this is me coming from my whole family's military, right? You have other countries that will use their women and children to protect their weapons. And America uses the weapons to protect the women and children. And that's how we've always been. And men are just not allowed to be men anymore. Women, you're treated with contempt if you're someone that wants to stay at home and raise your children, or if you choose to go get a career, for whatever reason, you have to squish the man next to you. And I don't understand it. I feel like there needs to be a place of refuge for people that you can be a woman if you want to be a woman. You can be a man if you want to be a man. And then again, the biggest thing is that exoneration of the child indecency and child assault. I'll never understand that. I really will never understand
that. Wrapping up, I just want to say it is interesting that you came from Uvalde. I know that they had the police standoff and that the public was not happy with the local police officers.
Right.
They felt that their response was shallow and not quick enough, and led to the danger. And I'm just wondering, wow, what an incredible response. Because in another part of the world, we're having a debate on, is it okay to, there's some questions on, like, if you look at Israel, Palestine, if they're, the Israeli government has accidentally or intentionally shot some of their own people. And I'm just comparing that to Uvalde here in Texas and how we would never tolerate that in America.
Right.
We have nothing along the lines of terrorists have taken over a hostage, shoot a tank round into the building. I mean, that would never fly here. That's apparently the policy in another country. I'm just going to leave it there. I didn't really want to get into that. Let's leave it with this. Final thoughts. Sorry. I watch the news too. I'm a human too. Final thoughts. You're not you. You're not me. You're a third person who's watching this interview. and they're saying, wow, I learned a lot. I'm struggling to remember it all, but there was this one thing the planned candidate for Texas governor said that stuck with me, thinking about the level of political polarization in America. And while I'm struggling to remember everything she said and all the reasons she had for why she's running and why she thinks it's a good idea, she said this one thing on the state of political polarization in America, and I just can't get it out of my head. What is that one thought, planned candidate for Texas governor?
I would probably just say independence, human right, someone that hopefully they were able to gather that this is somebody that wants to be authentic. So independence, that's the most important thing, being able to have your human rights not taken from you.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Do you have contact information, how the public can get a hold of you or where they can find out more about you? Or are we still waiting to build that?
Yeah, let me build that for a little bit just because of the planned part. But yes, I will get back to you on that.
Okay. We'll end it there. I'll send you a copy of the interview shortly. And I want to say thank you for coming out and thank you for being honest and giving your perspective on what you saw in America in your part of America. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.